So, brother, nobody will ever tell you this, but your 20s are the literal foundation for your life as a man. If you don't believe me, ask yourself, how many videos have you seen of people advising guys in their 30s? How many videos have you seen of guys advising guys in their 40s? Because even those that wake up in their 30s and 40s, they always wish they knew these ideas in their 20s. I've been wondering, why is 18 to 29 like a very special age bracket? And it dawned on me that it is literally the setup for your life. You see, before the world believes that you're still a small boy, maybe 16, but before you turn 18, the world assumes you're a small boy. The world assumes that any mistakes you make can be forgiven. But the moment you turn 18, anything you do, you are seen to be done through the lens of a man. And guess what? These are the foundation of your life. So if you miss out on these habits, right, any of these habits that you don't actually practice, bro, it can retire what I would say entire life as a man, right? If you can wreck it if you completely ignore the ideas I'm going to share in this video. And which is the habit. Number one habit I'll say is self-discipline. Bro, without self-discipline, there is no way you can form a good habit. It's not possible without self-discipline. So basically, see self-discipline as your ticket to the life you want. Self-discipline says you should do the work even when you don't feel like it. So now ask yourself, do you really have self-discipline? How much instant gratification do you delay? How many hours do you spend scrolling randomly on social media? Ask yourself. Self-discipline, right? Again, self-discipline will make you answer this question of will make you wake up early, will make you do the work, will help you fight distractions. Now, speaking of discipline, the second habit I'll say is financial discipline. No matter if you're born into a rich home or a poor home and you try to figure out your life, the irony is if you don't have financial discipline, you're fucked. Completely fucked. Financial discipline is if you earn money, how much more can you earn and how little can you spend? Now, when I say little can spend is how much of your money works to your advantage. I'll tell you this, in your early 20s, now people have different approaches towards financial discipline, but this is what I believe in your 20s. In your 20s, learn high income skills. From high income skills, so invest in yourself to a point where you have disposable income for you to invest in other instruments. Because people will tell you to invest in stocks, invest in bonds. Well, do they work? Yes, they work. But those advice mostly works for people who have disposable income, people who have people who have money that they don't need to spend now. But if you're in your 20s, please, anything that you need to do for your future, invest into it. For example, if you're into modeling, invest in your gym subscription, invest in your diet, invest in your diet supplements or your skincare routine. But the bottom line is, you already know what you want to achieve, right? So invest as much as possible, aggressively as possible into that thing you want to work on and proof. Trust me, it's always going to work. It's common sense advice. Number 3 is what? Physical fitness. Bro, I see way too many guys ignore this shit. See, no, I'm a firm preacher of surrounding yourself with men who are older than you. I see men in their 30s who barely go to the gym. I see men in their 30s who went to the gym in their 20s. Bro, the difference is there. You see a guy who is in his early 30s, belly, big stomach, facing obesity, or he just maybe wears a lucky jeans, but he's already having back pain, he's already having knee pain. Bro, never in your entire life, never ignore your physical fitness, because here's the harsh truth. Your 20s is the healthiest you're ever going to be. Now the question now is, are you going to maintain that healthiest, or are you going to give it a decline? Yeah, that's the harsh truth. So your 20s means that your eyeballs can only get this perfect. Your strength, now my main strength is I'm trying to your drive and everything would only remain this perfect. Now, do you want to stretch that thing out to your 30s, to your 40s, by literally being physically fit? And please, regardless of your fitness programs, because there's weightlifting, there's habit training, there's athletic training, regardless of your training, always have a good amount of cardio in your training, because I see way too many gym bros, right? I see way too many guys at the gym. They lift weights, they have the bangers, they have nice muscles, but when it comes to performance, they are fucked. They are completely fucked when it comes to performance. The moment they try to even show up for themselves, their body fails them. They climb staircases and they're already panting. But bro, what the fuck? It's just a flight of stairs you climbed. So again, have some cardio. And if you want to take it a step further, where I would say something that makes you actually dangerous, which I feel is like the most masculine trait you can have right now, or the best self-improvement habits you can have right now, is learning how to fight. Learning how to fight is what I call practical cardio. It's cardio quite alright. It makes you think fast. It builds character. So, bro, I'll say the most manly thing you can learn, right, is to learn how to fight. That is the reason why a lot of your self-improvement gurus actually are learning how to fight, even though it's boxing, because people think it's about striking, no, or defending, no. It's not about that. It's about processing your thoughts in a way that works for you. And trust me, fighting will get you there. The next habit I'll say is hitting goals. Now, I did not say setting goals because there are way too many people who get this dopamine of, oh, I set my goal, I feel good about myself, I talk about it, and bro, guess what? Now I feel good. I feel so good, I don't have to even attain the goal. But no, I said hitting your goals. Because the more you hit your goals, the more you feel good about yourself. And now I can't tell you the exact goals you can set, but I'll tell you this. There are people who will set big goals and achieve them. And before you know it, their life picks up. There are people who set small goals and yet their life picks up later. But the bottom line is set goals you are comfortable with. Right now, personally, I don't believe in setting on that smart goal, because to be very frank, the people who I admire, they never set smart goals. They set delusional goals and they use delusional work ethic to back it up. So yes, I'm a firm believer not setting goals the normal realistic way. Then speaking of setting goals, hitting goals like is what I said. So the more you hit goals, the more you build that momentum. So in your 30s, hitting goals becomes something that you just easily do, right? Because you have built systems that help you to set goals. So for example, now is if you set goals in your fitness, right, and you hit those goals, right, later before you know it, you know that you have to create a system in your 20s for that. You have to create a system to hit those goals. Now, if you take a goal, maybe say finances or business, you automatically know that it is systems that you have to build to help you achieve that goal. There's a reason why systems has become the new trend when it comes to habits, because systems would always save you in places where discipline has some leakage. Mind you, what that means is you still need discipline while you need those systems. The next habit I'll talk about is emotional regulation. You see, as a man born in today's age, right, everybody wants to trigger you. People want to control you, and they control you when you are emotional. Think about it, right? Do you know how crazy it is when they say toxic masculinity traits as a typical example is stoicism? I'm like, bro, have you ever heard anybody regret practicing stoicism? Have you ever heard? Because I've never heard. But guess what? I've always seen people regret not being able to control their emotions. So I'll tell you this. Your emotions are there whether you like it or not, but they are there as indicators, not directors. A typical example is if you feel angry, right? You can basically, you're a man, you can think and ask, why am I feeling angry? Something is not right somewhere, right? But now you can understand that it's supposed to indicate something is not right somewhere. So you think and then act, not act based on that anger. And speaking of emotional regulation, of all things, one thing I've come to realize is anger is actually weakness. Imagine somebody does something to you, but you can still think and act with clarity. You get to realize that anger is a complete waste of time, because it basically fucks up your thinking. And this is where it's in your 20s you begin to regulate these emotions. Speaking of emotions, now, I don't recommend you get into a committed relationship in your early 20s. But when it comes to regulation, regulating your emotions, one thing you get to realize is if you ever get into a relationship in your late 20s, which I recommend, you would heavily notice that the woman you are with would always be trying to test your emotions. She would always be trying to test your emotions. Now, if you react, if you cannot control your emotions, guess what? She sees you as weak. She may not leave you immediately, but she'll keep testing and testing until she realizes that this guy is weak. But for somebody who knows how to manage your emotions, you will know how to respond. You will know how to laugh it off. You will know how to take it serious. You will know the right amount of seriousness you can do, because you are somebody who is comfortable with these emotions. I'm not saying you suppress your emotions, but use them to your advantage. Use them to your understanding. Now, the next habit is always learn. Be learning something no matter what. You see, if you can get into the habit of learning one new thing, now I'm not saying that you should learn about quantum physics every day. No, something new, something that helps your life, because regardless of the life or the path that you choose, there's always something you don't know that you don't know. Basically, get the point. So what that means is, if you commit to this idea of learning And why this is even very important is because I see some guys who get to their 30s and they basically say, "Oh, God, I'm sorry, I don't think I can learn anything new." Do you know how crazy it is? Now, probably that is the reason why they barely advise guys in their 30s. Because there's this idea that there's this idea that when you get to 30s, yeah, it's difficult to learn new things because you are cooked. I think that's how I should have began the video, right? But they believe you're cooked already. So when you're in your 20s, when you have this ability to still learn in your 20s, it's a superpower because you know that deep down that if anything happens to what you learned today, you can easily flip the script, right? And learn something new again. You know that because you're not used to this identity of somebody who cannot learn anymore. Now, speaking of learning new things, right? You see, we live in an age of misinformation where a lot of science-based research is all there to scam you. It's crazy how these guys think. So what that means is if you can learn things, right? What that means is you can begin to think for yourself. You can begin to think for yourself because if you look at things like the most perfect diet, it's like, do you know how irritating such kind of things are? The perfect diet. No. It is how can we live healthy? Now, people argue from left to right, but I'll tell you this. Our ancestors for centuries ate food in a certain way. Guess what? They survived. They lived healthy. But our new style of eating is fucking us up. So guess what? If you know how to if you learn about diet, it's easy for you to think about what diet is going to work for you based on the goals that you set for yourself. The next habit I want you to have is the habit of being alone. Now, mind you, there's a big difference between solitude and loneliness. You see, when you seek solitude, you intentionally want to enjoy your own company, right? Because if you look at the guys who can't enjoy their own company, these are guys that are mostly distracted. If you cannot enjoy your company, you have a problem. The problem is because you would always need other people to validate you. You will always seek the permission of other people, before you show up for yourself, before you do things for yourself. Right? You have a business idea. You want this idea to be validated by your friends. And speaking of being validated by your friends, if you have a friend who brings any idea to you, don't motivate them. Instead, I want you to challenge them. Because when you motivate them, guess what happens? Their brain feels like, I don't see a need to prove this guy right because he already knows I can do it. But if you say, bro, your idea is great, but I don't think you can pull it off, that is a challenge that they will take up. And guess what? It is a drive to help them achieve those goals. So, yes, and I know this for a fact because when I was staying in my father's house, I had a guy called Silva with me, right? I said, Silva, man, I'm tired of my father's house. I need to move. And Silva was like, bro, you've been saying that for the last 3 months, but you haven't left. That was the moment. Before then, I had never taken any physical effort. I had Googled for a new apartment, did research online, but it was the next day I got into transport. I went straight to the area. I wanted to look for a house. Went to observe the area. I went to my guy, went to look for house agents, and 6 months later, I moved in. So I'll tell you that this. What's my point in itself? Yes, about so yes, I know I digress, but basically is you don't need external validation when you enjoy being by yourself. Because if you can think for yourself, right? I was talking about motivating your friends, so I think I digressed there. So yes, but that ability to be alone is what's very, very important, because you be able to think about what you're thinking about. I remember one time when I was by myself, right? And I began to have like very, very funny thoughts. I kept on asking, right? Where did this funny thoughts creep out from? Like, because I didn't have them like a few weeks or months ago. And I figured that was the same era, that was the same period I began to have a certain kind of friend around me, a certain kind of person around me who was always talking about this thing. This is what I tell you, your friends will either make or break you, right? And he kept on bringing up certain ideas, and finally, I came from my head. It wasn't there. So what was simple? I simply limited the time I have around him. And bro, my thoughts are clearer. So when you're alone, think about the things you think about. All right. Again, observe the quality of your thoughts. This is when journaling can come in. Now, personally, I really don't journal. I vlog my thoughts, and it's pretty kind of interesting to me because I prefer to speak than write. Anytime I want to write, my head just blanks out. The next habit is protecting your energy. Yeah, that's basically which kind of ties into being alone. Because let's be honest, the relationships, the friendships you build will either drain or make you. The partners you build will either drain or make you. Now, I'm a very big believer in your 20s. working as hard as possible. But still, you have to look at your stress levels. Yes, I worked as hard as possible. Sometimes I worked 13 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours. Now, those hours are not a badge of honor per se, right? Because it did have an impact on my health. But regardless, I really don't think I regret working that hard. I really don't regret, looking at where I came from, I really don't think I regret working that hard. One thing I'll tell you is check your stress levels because stress can fuck up your discipline. Stress can get you an addiction. Stress can. So what that means is a lot of people heavily underestimate what stress does. Now I'm not even talking about science though. I'm talking about because if we really look at it, science will never tell you that stress kills discipline. Science will never tell you that stress kills productivity because they don't want you to they don't want society does not want you reducing your stress levels. Not it doesn't because when you are stressed, you are easier to control. Trust me, because you barely think. So again, when you are stressed, it is much difficult for you to be creative. So with all this, the activities you do, please check them very well. Check your stress. Again, protect your energy. In your 20s, where you should like learn to nurture proper relationships, right? Because let's be honest, you might want to have friends around, you might want to have people you want to hang around with, but you should be very selective because the friends you have in your life right now, I can bet you, those friends came into your life based on a condition. A condition could be you lived close to each other, you went to the same school. But this is the harsh truth. If you formed your friendships solely because of condition, guess what? There is a high chance you and that your friend would remain in that condition. So what should you do? Make it very intentional with your friends. Now, when you make this choice to become intentional with your friends, two things potentially happen. One, you ask yourself, I'm lonely now. I need a new set of friends that are aligned to where I want to be in life, right? Or should I go back to my friends and fuck this idea of growth? Now, this is tricky because I literally have had guys who have made different decisions. I've had guys who have made the choice of getting new friends. I've had guys who have made the choice of going back to their old friends and saying, you know what, this new identity is not for me. And regardless, I'll tell you to always look at the friendships you are building no matter what. And the most important thing is keep the promises you make to yourself. You see, all this is not going to be possible if you're somebody who makes promises to yourself and you end up breaking them. Everything I said today will be complete trash to yourself. If you don't know, if you're always breaking promises that you make to yourself. So brother, you see, you can break other people's promises, but the one you make to yourself should never because you will begin to see yourself as somebody to never be taken serious anymore. And that is the worst place for you to ever be because do you know how crazy it is for you to be in your 30s and you tell yourself, because I've heard guys in their 30s say things like, I trust myself. I don't think I can get it done. I'm saying, what do you mean by that? That is a fucking weak thing to say. There is no standard that would ignore you, in your 30s making such a statement that you know yourself. You can't trust your words. So brother, these things I basically just told you are non-negotiables for you in your 20s. If you have these things in your 20s, there is absolutely no way you can have a fucked up 30s. It's not possible. Do you want to claim depression? Bro, depression is a state. And depression kicks in when you feel like your life has nothing meaningful, your life has nothing happening, nothing exciting. But guess what? When your physical body and your mind is taken care of, guess what? Depression doesn't really exist. If you have goals you're working towards, goals that you set for yourself, you are happy to move towards, bro, trust me. It's well, guess what? You would never be, you wouldn't really have a problem. I think did I mention finding your purpose? Because finding your purpose is not really a habit. It's something that you kind of like discover and then you be on that path. So I don't really think it's something you keep on finding after you have found it. So I didn't mention that. But basically your 20s to be best if you find your purpose. My name is Tonoroya. If any idea in this video resonated with you, please share with somebody who you know find it helpful. A guy in his 20s. Talk to you soon. And if you want to connect with me, you can click the link in the description box. Like this, that's linked to my other social media channel, so you can connect with me directly if you want to work with me. Talk to you soon, and then bye for now.